Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Natalie Solden with the Office of Communications and Public Affairs for the Office of Science. Welcome to the Office of Science's informational webinar on Science Foundations for Energy Earthshots. Before we begin, I have a couple of logistics to go over. This meeting is being recorded. The recording of this meeting, along with the slides, are going to be posted on the Office of Science website, which I will drop into the chat soon. As you saw on the first slide, the slides being presented today are on the website already. There are closed captions available. Please click on the closed captions button to enable them. After the presentation, there will be a question and answer session. You can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. With that, I'd like to have the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Hal Finkel.
Hello, my name is Hal Finkel. I'm the acting director for the research division in OSCAR, the Advanced Scientific Computing Research Program. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal. Gail?
Hello, I am Gail McLean. I am the acting division director for chemical sciences, geosciences, and biosciences in basic energy sciences. And I am also the team lead for photochemistry and biochemistry.
Thank you, Andy.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Andy Schwartz. I am also in Basic Energy Sciences with Gail, where I'm the division director for the Material Sciences and Engineering division.
And I'm Todd Anderson. I am from the Office of Biological and Environmental Research. I'm the division director for the Biological System Sciences division. Welcome.
Thank you, Dawn.
Hey, my name is Dawn Adine, and I am a program manager in the Biological and Environmental Research Program, working in the Biological System Sciences division with Todd.
Natalia.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. I'm Natalia Melser. I'm a senior technical advisor in the Office of the Deputy Director for Science Programs.
Victoria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria DeStefano. I'm a science and technology advisor in the Office of the Deputy Director for Science Programs as well.
Thank you, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Zarkin. I'm the director of the Office of Grants and Contract Support.
Cynthia.
Hi, hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Anderson, director of the Financial Assistance Division within the Office of Science. Welcome.
And Paul.
Welcome. My name is Paul Thigpen. I am the lead contracting officer for the Office of Grants and Cooperative Agreements. Welcome. Thank you.
With that, we're ready to get started.
Okay, thank you all. Let me see if my slides are okay. Okay, great. So we are starting today. We are covering the Science Foundations for Energy Earthshots Funding Opportunity Announcement, or FOA. The opening slide here has a couple of key dates that we want to bring your attention to. First, a submission deadline for pre-applications is April 25th. The response date, which is the date by which you'll receive encourage or discourage decisions, is May 23rd. And then the final deadline for applications is June 21st. The Office of Science mission is to deliver the scientific discoveries and major tools to transform our understanding of nature and advance the energy, economic, and national security of the US. So those two pillars, the scientific discoveries or the research, and the tools, are represented on this slide. We are the largest federal supporter of basic research in the physical sciences, supporting nearly 29,000 people on the grants that we have each year at universities across the United States. We also operate 28 user facilities that support nearly 34,000 users per year. And those user facilities range from high performance computing to X-ray and neutron sources, all kinds of physics facilities, the nanoscience centers, as well as biocharacterization facilities. So our user facilities really cover the Office of Science research space. Within our user facilities, we also design and construct next generation facilities to support the needs of the research community. The Office of Science research portfolio covers 8 offices. They're listed here. However, the funding opportunity for today is only focused on the first 3. So we have the Advanced Scientific Computing Research, basic energy sciences and biological environmental research programs. And we'll start first by telling you a little bit more about the 3 offices that are supporting today's funding opportunity announcement. So first I'll turn to Hal to talk about the OSCAR program.
Thanks, Talia. So Advanced Scientific Computing Research, this is the first of the 3 program offices that are supporting this FOA. OSCAR has a research program that invests in applied mathematics and computational science foundations and computer science foundations that underlie a lot of the computational science that is critical for this and other programs. This includes basic mathematics and computer science research that covers areas like machine learning, uncertainty quantification, and physical systems modeling, in addition to advanced computing topics such as advanced computing technologies and microelectronics co-design. We also have facilities through which we deploy some of the largest supercomputers in the world for open science. We have the first exascale supercomputer, Frontier, now in the top 500 that has surpassed the exascale barrier. And we are looking forward to deploying other resources in the future as well. And we engage in a number of partnership activities across the spectrum with academia, with companies and industry, large and small, in order to fund innovative research and deploy leading edge resources. And finally, we invest in research, starting from sponsoring graduate fellowships all the way through later stage career opportunities. Thank you.
So Basic Energy Sciences supports fundamental research to help us understand, predict, and ultimately control matter and energy at electronic, atomic, and molecular levels. This discovery science as use-inspired research is providing a foundation to help us solve challenges that are facing advanced technologies related to energy, manufacturing, and other national priorities. The science that BES supports involves a very vibrant community of academic and national lab researchers who aim to understand materials and chemical sciences at atomic and molecular scales. BES also supports cutting-edge scientific facilities that include our advanced X-ray light sources, neutron scattering sources, and nanoscale science research centers, and thousands of scientists from across many diverse fields make use of these facilities. The research and discoveries that BES has supported are driving U.S. leadership in science. They help sustain innovation across diverse technologies and play a role in improving our economic and national security. This includes foundational scientific understanding of both chemical and materials processes, starting actually at the level of electrons. And this research provides a foundation to advance a range of different technologies, such as energy, chemical manufacturing, and microelectronics. It also builds on the continuous progress in basic science, which is critical for both advancing technologies as well as sustaining our innovation and competitiveness. And we are seeing that some of the toughest challenges are being tackled by collaborative teams that bring in a diverse set of skills. These include projects such as our Energy Innovation Hubs and our Energy Frontier Research Centers. And as this funding opportunity announcement has indicated, this is an opportunity again to bring together collaborative teams to take on some tough challenges associated with the Energy Earthshots. Thank you.
So for the Office of Biological and Environmental Research, we support transformative biological, earth, and environmental research to achieve a predictive understanding of complex systems that are relevant to energy and environmental issues of national importance. Topics typically included in our portfolio are biological science, biogeochemical science, and physical processes that span an incredible range from the molecular scale all the way up to regional and even global scales. Our portfolio includes 2 major emphases, one in the area of genomics to understand and design biological systems so they can be leveraged for a variety of different purposes with a particular focus on sustainable bioenergy and bioproduct production from renewable plant biomass, and a range of different genomic-enabled methods of looking at ways that would help grow a burgeoning U.S. bio-based economy. Our earth and environmental research continues to combine scientific understanding of the atmosphere, oceans, land systems, and cryosphere with advanced analytics to accurately model the Earth system at a variety of different observational scales. Now includes an emphasis in urban and has always had an interest in natural environments. BER supports 3 Office of Science user facilities that feed back into the programs. The DOE Joint Genome Institute is a primary source of genomic information for plants, microbes, and microbial communities that feed back into our genomics portion of the portfolio. Our atmospheric radiation measurement user facility supports our atmospheric research. And the Environmental Molecular Sciences Laboratory at Pacific Northwest National Lab provides a variety of biological, chemical, and biogeochemical instrumentation methods that support the entire BER portfolio. Access to the user facilities is available free of charge through a user proposal system. Thanks.
Thanks for that introduction to the 3 programs that are sponsoring this funding opportunity announcement. We'll transition now into an overview of the Energy Earthshots. And the goal of this particular funding opportunity is to enhance cross-cutting fundamental research in support of the Energy Earthshot goals. So there are 2 points on this slide that we really want to emphasize. The first is that priority will be given to applications that are relevant to multiple Energy Earthshots. So we've listed here the 6 Energy Earthshots. Again, we'll go into each one individually, but priority will be given to applications that have relevance to more than one of those Earthshots. And secondly, applications are encouraged to address more than one of the research programs. So we just heard from the 3 research programs, OSCAR, PES, and BER, and we do strongly encourage teams that include challenges or problems that cross multiple offices. So the Energy Earthshots were initiated, 2021 was the first announcement for the Hydrogen Earthshot. And these Earthshots target major breakthroughs that are needed in the next decade to solve the climate crisis and reach our 2050 net zero carbon goals. The Energy Earthshots do build on the Sunshot Initiative that was announced in 2011. And the Earthshots themselves aim to impact our emissions, to reduce our emissions, to address really difficult technology barriers to advancing the technologies needed to reach our carbon goals. They have highly ambitious decadal targets. They're compelling, bold, and inspirational, and they significantly engage stakeholders across the DOE mission space. So we'll move now into a description of each of the Earthshots, starting with hydrogen, which was the first to be announced. Gail?
Thank you. So as Talia mentioned, the Hydrogen Energy Earthshot was the first one announced. It was announced in 2021. As you see in the lower corner of this slide, its target is to reduce the cost of clean hydrogen to $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade. Occasionally you hear that called 111. A number of fundamental breakthroughs will be needed related to hydrogen production, as well as hydrogen sources, sinks, and quantification to help DOE reach this goal. There are several possible pathways related to hydrogen for this goal. They include electrolysis, reducing perhaps the electricity cost and improving efficiency in areas related to electrolysis. Another pathway that has some fundamental challenges include thermal conversion, which would include reforming, pyrolysis, pathways that have low life cycle emissions. And as you think about conversion, you can think about areas such as separation science, catalysis, carbon capture, and other emissions. And then the third pathway is what's called advanced pathways, which could be higher risk, but again, high reward pathways. These could include things such as photoelectrochemical or thermochemical solar water splitting, or perhaps microbial electrolysis of waste streams to help us find ways for hydrogen production, more efficient and less costly. And again, there are a lot of fundamental opportunities in these pathways. And if you look at the FOA, you'll see resources noted and reports connected to hydrogen and hydrogen production. And an example is the Foundational Science for Carbon Neutral Hydrogen Technologies, a BES roundtable that was held in August of 2021 in coordination with EERE, FECM, and NE. And that report points out a number of priority research opportunities for fundamental science related to development of carbon neutral hydrogen technologies. Again, I encourage you to look at the description in the FOA of the other resources and other reports related to the hydrogen energy Earthshot. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. The next Earthshot we'll talk about is the long duration storage or long duration energy storage shot, or LDES, also announced in the summer or early fall of 2021. And again, in the lower right-hand corner, the target for that Earthshot is listed, the reduction of storage costs by 90% from a 2020 lithium-ion baseline in storage systems that deliver at least 10 hours of duration, and all of that done within a decade. So this is not about batteries for vehicles. This is about long duration storage, primarily for applications on the grid to enable the inclusion and adoption of extensive renewable energy, wind and solar onto the grid. So we've defined some fundamental areas that require fundamental breakthroughs to meet this aggressive goal: electrochemical mechanisms, electrothermal mechanisms, chemical energy storage via energy carriers and storing energy in chemical bonds, and finally electromechanical energy storage. And what we're looking for in this funding opportunity announcement is the basic science that underpins one or more of these areas. And again, I think focusing on the fundamentals, on the basic science, is the most important, particularly in some of these areas where it's less obvious that there is basic science to be done. A couple of references shown here, but as Gail said, we encourage you to read the funding opportunity announcement and the full descriptions and references there. The report shown in the upper right is from a few years ago, a workshop and report entitled Basic Research Needs for Next Generation Electrical Energy Storage. This was not focused specifically on long duration storage, but a lot of the scientific directions identified there could have implications for these long duration storage systems. And finally, on the lower left, DOE's Energy Storage Grand Challenge Roadmap, which was published a couple of years ago and really lays out a roadmap for energy storage across the department. Next.
Thanks, Andy. For the carbon negative shot, here we're looking for fundamental science advances that would result in prodigious amounts of CO2 being removed from the atmosphere. And that can include a variety of different mechanisms, including biological mechanisms, looking at ways of sequestering carbon biologically, converting it to a range of different long-lived materials, for example. Could also be looking at using CO2 directly from the atmosphere in new and different ways that remove it, again, removing it from the atmosphere. Not only interested in biological mechanisms, but also abiotic mechanisms of sequestration. And this could be part of looking at the basic science challenges in direct air capture of CO2 right directly out of the atmosphere and putting it into a form for long-term stability or long-term storage. We also think that the research contributing to the larger carbon negative shot would include coupled experimental and computational approaches that would be included in our any biological or abiological research in this area that would help us better understand the fundamental kinetics of carbonization and CO2 reactivity. How would we actually look at the kinetic parameters of pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere and converting it to more stable forms? Also associated with this effort is a look at how we measure, monitor, and validate removal processes. How do we actually measure the amount of CO2 that's being removed in the environment through a variety of different mechanisms? We'll need a definite need to validate any new mechanisms to validate the type of research and type of processes that we're investigating. The goal listed there, emphasized at the bottom right, is looking at removing a ton of CO2 for less than $100, being able to hit that target within a decade using a variety of these different techniques. So we're looking forward to seeing the proposals that come into this area. We think there's a lot of interest in this area, and a lot of fundamental science that can be done in this area.
So moving on to the fourth Energy Earthshot that was announced in September of 2022. This is the Enhanced Geothermal Earthshot. As shown in the corner of the slide, it aims to reduce the cost of enhanced geothermal systems, or EGS, by 90% by 2035. It consists of 3 interconnected activities: resource characterization, well construction, and reservoir production. And a number of fundamental breakthroughs are needed to help us reach the goals of this Earthshot, which really intends to take advantage of the heat beneath our feet for electricity production. So if you look at the FOA, you'll see that we're calling out needs for experimental and computational efforts to better understand mesoscale to regional subsurface constitutive mechanics and fluid injection response and fluid flow in EGS environments. We also need fundamental breakthroughs and innovations for EGS data collection, as well as its analysis. And we need to better understand at a fundamental level materials behavior and the geochemical and geomechanical processes that are in action in EGS wellbore environments. And again, there are a number of resources in the FOA that you can use to get better background information on the enhanced geothermal energy Earthshot.
All right, so next we're going to talk about the floating offshore wind Earthshot. And the floating offshore wind aims to enable us to take advantage of the immense amount of energy that is available from wind. And a lot of that wind energy is really only accessible offshore and in places where the water is quite deep. And so the idea is that you need to have infrastructure there that is floating so that you can get it out to places where the water is deep, and then you can capture the energy from the wind. And there are a lot of challenges that have been identified in this area. And we're looking for basic research that underpins innovations to address these challenges. And so the first area says materials modeling and control for floating wind turbines, right? So that's looking for innovative research that underpins innovation, leading to better materials, better modeling and control techniques for individual turbines. Of course, the turbines sit in an environment and they interact with that environment and with each other through that environment. And so we need work on modeling, measuring the wind farm and surrounding environment, basic research in that area. And then once the electricity is generated, you have to do something with it. So you can either store it, you can transform it into some other form or use it for some other useful purpose, or you can transmit it back to shore. And given that these turbines are envisioned to be out in deep water, all of those things are very challenging. And so there should be basic research challenges that underpin innovations in those areas as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Hal. So I'm going to finish out the Energy Earthshot discussion. After a shot on earth and wind, September was rounded out with a shot on fire with the launch of the industrial heat shot. The focus of this shot is to support decarbonization of the really challenging, diverse industrial manufacturing sector. The process of heating to transform materials into useful products really accounts for nearly half of the emissions in all of the industrial sector. Because of the wide array of industrial processes, operations, and even the broad range of temperatures that are necessary, that are needed to construct the products that we use every day, there are many fundamental basic research breakthroughs that are needed to achieve the shot's target of 85% lower greenhouse gases from industrial heating processes. So this is just a subset of this potential topics that could be relevant for this shot. The first being the research to reduce the amount of carbon that's released through these heating processes, developing new ways to create the same or very similar products by either developing low or no heat process technologies, or by potentially reducing the overall requirements for thermal energy with these processes. And finally, a research to advance heat recovery during the processes for reuse or for better using that heat in the first place. Like the other shots, there are resources in the FOA that I would strongly encourage you to take a look at for further information. And I think I now hand it back to Talia.
Thanks, Dawn. So we have covered essentially the scope of the funding opportunity announcement, and now we'll dig into a few of the details of this particular FOA. So as a reminder, this FOA is focused on concepts to address the foundational scientific challenges underlying the Earthshots. The basic research that's proposed and applications to this FOA should be focused on creativity and innovation. The topics should be cross-cutting. And again, as I mentioned, priority will be given to applications that impact multiple Earthshots and that are of relevance to multiple Office of Science programs. There are a number of examples in the FOA that are illustrative only of this idea of what we mean by cross-cutting. And I have a few examples here. I pulled these two, they're actually in the FOA, so you can review them later. The first on measurement and sensing. So if you need to measure the state of complex systems in real time, it's imperative to make accurate and time-sensitive, it can be accurate to make accurate and time-sensitive decisions. And also when we are looking at systems, we have to monitor them over time to improve performance, discern trends, and improve the understanding of the system. So the advances in measurement science are needed that can be tailored to these Earthshot applications, for example, hydrogen, methane, considering the different environments, temperatures, salinity levels, et cetera. And these can be quite extreme environments, temperature extremes, pressure extremes, et cetera. So there's a number of areas in measurement and sensing that will cross-cut the Energy Earthshots that would be applicable for this funding opportunity announcement. In the area of multi-scale processes and systems, some examples in this area include atomic and molecular understanding of materials and chemical reactions to underpin new energy efficient processes and systems at larger scales. But it's not only at those smaller levels, but at the regional and global scale, studies can increase the knowledge of geomechanical or geochemical processes. And we can also address challenges and impacts of the Earth system variability and change. So these studies of processes and systems across temporal and spatial scales could advance multiple Energy Earthshot goals. So there are a number of examples in the funding opportunity announcement that you can review. Again, these are just illustrative. These are not prioritized. These are not areas of particular interest, but just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we're interested in. Specifically for this FOA, the lead institutions can be universities or colleges and nonprofit or for-profit organizations. So this is limited to those institutions. We are strongly encourage minority serving institutions, including historically Black colleges and universities, to participate either as the lead or participating as a team member. And as subrecipients, DOE labs, as well as other university colleges, nonprofit for-profits, or non-DOE federally funded R&D centers, and other federal agencies are eligible to be subrecipients. A few limitations we wanted to highlight. Again, these are all in the FOA. So applicant institutions are limited to no more than 3 applications and 3 applications. So they're not, unlike the Energy Earthshot Research Center, where we had each proposal focused on a single Earthshot. These, as I mentioned earlier, we strongly encourage applications that cross-cut multiple Energy Earthshots. So there are no limitations by Earthshot or by program like it is for the other call. These are just 3 applications per institution. There is no limit on the number of applications on which an institution can be a subrecipient, i.e. not the lead institution. In addition, the individual who is named as the lead investigator can do so on no more than 1 pre-application or application. However, the lead investigator may be listed as senior or key personnel on separate applications or submissions without limitation. And any person who is participating as senior or key personnel can do so with no restrictions across multiple applications. So pre-applications are required. We wanted to call your attention to a few specifics. So the format is listed in the FOA. The cover page must identify which Earthshots are relevant to the application, as well as which of the 3 programs are relevant, with the most relevant listed first. Along with the pre-application, you have to include a list of individuals who should not serve as merit viewers. There are details on this in the funding opportunity announcement, and we have a sample template if you'd like to use that. This list, preferably in Excel format, can be added in PAMs. This is new. So for folks who are familiar with the Office of Science, We often would go get this another way, but starting with this funding opportunity announcement, you can attach this in PAMS along with the pre-application. It will be attached as a separate file in the area that is labeled additional attachment. Again, there are instructions in the FOA on this as well. A note for applicants that the pre-application encouragement decisions may be informed by a competitiveness review, and the review criteria for that is listed in the FOA. Applications that have not been encouraged may be declined without merit review. And due to the limitations by institution, please be sure to work with your institution's sponsored research office to ensure that those submission limitations are satisfied. We are anticipating awarding up to $150 million total in current and future fiscal year awards. Each individual application should be between $500,000 and $2 million per year for a total project period of 3 years. And also starting at the beginning of this fiscal year, we require promoting inclusive and equitable research, or a peer plan, with every funding opportunity. They are limited to 3 pages and should describe the activities and strategies that will be incorporated to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the research project. These will be evaluated. There is a merit review criterion specifically on the peer plans, and we have a lot of additional information on our website at the link provided. Authoritative source for this competition, it's posted on our website. If there's any discrepancies from what you've heard today, the FOA is the controlling document. And if you have further questions after today's webinar, you can reach us at sc.earthshots@science.doe.gov.
Great, thank you all for your presentation. We'll hop into the question part of this webinar right now. Thank you all for submitting questions. The first one is, would hydrogen Earthshot effort include underground hydrogen storage?
So I'm making an assumption here that the question has to do with the hydrogen Earthshot as described in this FOA, and whether we are looking for specific approaches related to underground hydrogen storage or hydrogen. So if you read the description of the hydrogen shot, you'll see it's primarily targeted towards hydrogen production. There is a hydrogen production, hydrogen generation, but there are complementary approaches that can be used to quantify or model hydrogen emissions, such as those arising from geological hydrogen sources. So it would depend on how you frame your project, but it still needs to be driven by a fundamental scientific challenge that is relevant for hydrogen shot, as well as preferably a cross-cutting challenge, not simply related to hydrogen storage. I don't know if that answered the question.
Sounds complete to me, but if we have any follow-ups, please go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box. Is geothermal energy storage also included in long duration storage shot?
No, I'll take that one. I think that any viable forms of long duration storage are included. I would also point out that, as Talia noted, we're looking for basic research that crosses over between these different shots, and that's the prioritization that will be given. And so, for example, this question, there may be, if there are opportunities to do basic research that could impact both the geothermal shot as well as the long duration storage shot, that could be an opportunity to look for this kind of a funding opportunity to have that cross-cutting basic science project.
Thank you.
I'll also briefly say, I think that the question about hydrogen is potentially a chemical energy storage medium, and so the previous question about hydrogen storage, again, echoing what Gail said, looking for the cross-cutting science could have implications for the storage shot, if not directly for the production aspects of the hydrogen shot.
Okay. Talia, I think this is a question for you. How or what would be the difference of this science foundation of Energy Earthshots from Energy Earthshot research centers, except the part which entities are eligible to lead?
Right, so I think this question is addressing the fact that we have 2 solicitations out related to the Earthshots right this year. So the first solicitation that was issued was the Energy Earthshot Research Centers, which are led by the DOE National Laboratories. And then there's this funding opportunity on the Science Foundations for Energy Earthshots. So the difference between the two, of course, other than which entities are eligible to lead, as the question highlighted, is that the Energy Earthshot Research Centers are focused on singular energy earthshots and having tight connections to the drivers in the applied energy offices. So in that case, they should be strongly focused on scientific questions that are in a singular earthshot. In this particular funding opportunity announcement, we are looking for cross-cutting fundamental research that can support the Earthshot goal, multiple energy Earthshots. So we're looking again for cross-cutting fundamental research of relevance to multiple Earthshots versus the Energy Earthshot Research Centers, the lab call, which focused on singular Earthshots and strong connections to the applied activities in those areas.
Thank you. To what extent is this funding opportunity announcement oriented at technological research as opposed to fundamental science? And what if some of the proposed topics are regarded as major emphases of other federal agencies?
So I'll take that one. So I think this is tied a little bit to the previous question, but this is solely focused on fundamental science. So we aren't looking for applied R&D, for example, under this funding opportunity is supported by the Office of Science. And there will be topics that overlap perhaps with other agencies, but these should be focused on the Energy Earthshot goals, which make them clearly within the space of the Office of Science and the Department of Energy.
Great, thank you. Within the carbon negative Earthshots category, are projects focused on open ocean carbon sequestration encouraged?
So I'll take that one. No, generally we don't have a scope within the Office of Science portfolio to look at marine systems experimentally. There is a strong modeling component within the BER portfolio, but it's purely from a modeling perspective and part of the global climate modeling that's going on in the portfolio. There are other agencies that are very much interested in marine carbon dioxide removal mechanisms, and so we've stayed out of that area in anticipation that other agencies that have a history of working in open ocean systems would be picking up on some of the carbon dioxide removal mechanisms that we're not supporting under this FOA.
Thank you, Todd. For a hydrogen Earthshot, will any basic research downstream of hydrogen production be of interest, either distribution or end use?
So I will give this one a shot, but my colleagues should jump in. For downstream use, distribution or end use, again, this needs to address a fundamental research topic that could be cross-cutting across other Earthshots. So if there is a fundamental science question that may be related to downstream hydrogen production that could impact another Earthshot, a cross-cutting topic, then there's a potential yes. And that this is in part from where the pre-application is very helpful for us to see exactly what you're looking for and exactly how you're framing your question. So when you submit your pre-application, make sure you explain that fundamental research component and what Earthshots it's relevant to and how that cross-cuts. Preferably, as Tali said, it's not required, but preferably you cross-cut offices, the BES, BER, and Oscar. You don't have to do all three, but it would be good if you could do at least two. And it's something that's a fundamental question. So if it's downstream of hydrogen production, yes, it could potentially be of use. But again, it's how you phrase it and how you justify that question as fundamental science relevant to multiple Earthshots.
Great, thank you. If someone were proposing basic research on a biological process for converting CO2 into biofuels, biochemicals, could that fit both the industrial heat and carbon negative shots?
So I'll take this one. So I think it would really depend upon the processes that you are focused on. So obviously for the industrial heat, we're looking at processes that involve some sort of heat being given into it. So if the process is something about, let's say, producing chemicals that use a lot of heat to do the distillation or something like that, then potentially it would be responsive to that. For the carbon negative, I would say that if it's a biological process to take carbon and convert to something that'd be long lasting, long to store that carbon away, then it potentially could be responsive as well. But it really would depend on sort of what those processes are and what topic areas or what chemicals or products you're trying to produce.
Thanks, Dawn. Okay. The funding opportunity announcement notes BER invests in exascale Earth and climate system models. Is there a strong reference for these or preference for these system models, or is it acceptable to use standalone models?
Taking that the question to be an either or, are we aligning with some of the BER efforts in exascale models, or are we using a different model? I would say you'd want to propose research that would align with and mesh with some of the larger scale Earth system models that are being conducted within BER. So you'd like to be able to develop a module or a component that would contribute to that larger exascale effort in BER. Hopefully that's clear.
Thanks, Todd. Are solar cell materials within the scope of long during energy shot?
Yeah, long duration. So this is Andy. I think the simple answer is probably no. So as I said, one of the motivations for the long duration energy shot is to enable the inclusion of expanded renewable sources onto the energy grid. But the solar cell materials themselves don't enable long duration energy storage. They enable energy generation. And what we're really focused here on is once the energy has been generated, electricity produced by those solar cells, when the sun is shining, how can we store it over durations of hours or even longer for use at a later time?
Hey, Talia, is there an expectation to have both computation, modeling, and experiments, or could a purely computational / modeling proposal be okay, assuming it covers basic science and multiple Earth shots?
Yes, that would be acceptable to propose that.
Great. Gail, this is a question for you. For the geothermal shot, when you mention understanding materials behavior and geochemical processes in EGS, can these be new materials such as high T self-healing cements instead of typical commercially used cements?
So I would say the short answer is yes, as long as what's driving the research is a fundamental research challenge or concept.
Great. Would modeling and analysis of hydrogen and long duration energy storage at the power grid level be of interest?
I guess I'll take that one. Short of more details, it's hard to say, but I think those are topics of interest. Modeling, as was answered a couple of questions ago about modeling and computation, we are certainly encouraging not just experimental work, but also the modeling work to go along with it. But again, it has to be driven by fundamental science questions. It's not just system level modeling, but actually trying to model some fundamental science questions and use those to drive forward our knowledge to enable these aggressive Earthshot goals.
How is enhanced geothermal defined in the context of the Earthshots and the funding opportunity announcement. Does it necessarily need to be about massive hydraulic fracturing, which has its downsides, or does it also include closed loop systems or other? Gail, that's for you.
I think the challenge here is what's the fundamental science that would be relevant for enhanced geothermal systems. And we have defined enhanced geothermal systems in the FOA as enhanced geothermal systems can be created where there are hot rocks, but where favorable amounts of permeability and or water do not exist. Reservoirs are created by drilling wells and then pumping water to create permeability. So that's our definition in the FOA. If what you're wanting to study and what your fundamental science question is relevant for that topic area, then please submit a pre-application. If you're using a different system to answer some of those questions, but it's relevant to EGS, you can make that argument. The main thing is we want you to have a primary focus on the science related to settings, tools, or processes that could be relevant for enhanced geothermal systems.
Talia, this is for you. We are encouraged to address multiple Earthshots, but do we need to select a single topic, topics 1 through 8, or can the proposal address more than one topic?
So maybe if the person who answered this question could post a follow-up. I think that the topics 1 through 8 may be referencing the examples that are in the FOA, which are not meant to be an exclusive list. They are purely examples. So, you know, we're not asking for applications in those example areas. Those are provided simply to give you an idea of what could be a cross-cutting research topic that would be responsive to the FOA. So if I have that incorrect, please post a follow-up question. But again, those are not the topics of the FOA. Those are simply examples.
Thanks, Talia. How fundamental should the fundamental research be in terms of TRL?
Okay, I can try to take that on behalf. So what I would say is that we don't even use the TRL scale here because it's not technology. We're focused on science. So if one wants to say how fundamental, you would say that it's at the bottom of the TRL scale or maybe below. That said, there's basic science that can have implications at all levels of the TRL scale. So if you know of a technology that's at a higher technology readiness level, but you feel is being impeded by a lack of fundamental scientific knowledge, and you can build a proposal to do the research to fill those knowledge gaps with that scientific knowledge, that would be totally totally relevant to us and potentially of interest to us. So we tend not to talk about TRL levels in the type of science we fund because we're not doing technology readiness.
Thanks, Andy. Should there be any techno-economic analysis regarding the potential to reach the Earthshots targets? That seems beyond the basic research focus.
I can take that. I agree that is beyond the basic research focus.
Thanks. Will priority also be given to the applications that focus on one Earthshot, but with interdisciplinary study related to different aspects of one Earthshot?
I'll take that one. So the language in the FOA is that priority will be given to applications that address multiple energy Earthshots. So not the question, I believe, described different aspects within one Earthshot. That is not what's written. It's applications that address multiple energy Earthshots.
Thank you. For carbon shot, is soil carbon sequestration technology within the scope?
I think I'll take that one. I think I would stress more the basic science challenges in facilitating or measuring carbon sequestration processes. I wouldn't necessarily look at developing or validating the technology. I would prefer that it'd be mostly more on the basic science challenges that would allow one to promote soil carbon sequestration or understand it better.
Thanks, Todd. Are topics such as digital twins or similar end-to-end holistic modeling potentially relevant?
I'll take that one. So there are a number of cases where creating holistic models of systems are useful, but for the basic science topics behind digital twins, you have to think about, are there underlying unknowns in the computational science and the applied mathematics and the computer science that would enable the creation of those systems? And that would be the scope you need to focus on for basic science in this area.
Thanks, Al. Talia, is an application with only one topic for a single Earthshot still eligible?
Yes, so I think this question gets to the prior discussion. So priority will be given to applications that address multiple Earthshots, but you can have a proposal that only addresses one. So that's not a requirement to address multiple, but we will prioritize those that do.
How would the knowledge obtained from this FOA be different from the goals of EFRCs?
So I guess I'll take that and make one point, which is that there are a couple of acronyms here that are very similar. So EFRCs as written refers to Energy Frontier Research Centers, which are funded entirely in the Office of Basic Energy Sciences. Though we have had talk early in part of this webinar about the EERCs, I apologize for the very similar acronym, the Energy Earthshot Research Center. So I will answer it as written for EFRCs, though if the questioner was really asking about EERCs, then we can answer that too. The EFRCs, as I said, are only focused on basic energy sciences. So the material science, chemical sciences, geobiosciences supported by BES. This FOA is broader than that, including our colleagues in OSCAR and biological environmental research. So that's one distinction. And as we noted earlier, we are encouraging applications that span the scientific scope of those offices, more than one of the offices. They are also, the science targets of this call is specifically focused on the Earthshots. The EFRC program is quite a bit broader than that, covering lots of topics, some of which are aligned with the Earthshots, but others of which are not.
Thanks. I see in a few examples you mentioned, proposals related to Earth system models can be relevant to Energy Earthshot goals. However, it might not be explicitly written in the subcategories like hydrogen shot or carbon shot, etc. So my question is that if a proposal on regional scale and global scale related to weather extreme can be relevant in this call. You think we'll need a little bit more details about this question? Okay.
I'll just add.
I think so now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they'll probably want to send a more detailed question. There certainly are places, for instance, in the floating offshore wind Earthshot where modeling of extreme conditions is relevant, but I encourage a follow-up email so that we can get a more specific answer on the scope.
Sounds good. Are new anchoring technologies within the scope of the floating offshore wind shot?
If there's a basic science questions being addressed that is going to inform new anchoring technologies, then that can be in scope.
Okay. The Office of Science has a focus on molecular scale and below research. However, safe geologic storage of CO2 and hydrogen is often controlled by pore scale processes. Are those kinds of proposals in alignment with this funding opportunity announcement?
So if you're looking at some fundamental questions related to, let's say, geomechanical, geochemical processes, and that is relevant to pore scale, that would be in alignment, because what you're trying to do is understand the fundamental science behind EGS. And that's going to go beyond, as you said, beyond the molecular scale. So it is going to go to the core scale, but we're looking at the fundamental science underlying those processes or fluid flow or structure.
I agree.
Great. We just have time for like a couple more questions, and we won't get to all of the questions today, but we'll put up a slide and I'll drop in the chat where you can email and look for more information on the website. Our next question. Are innovative and pilot installation methods based on biological processes within the scope of floating offshore?
I think this answer is similar to the one I just mentioned. So if there's a basic science question that's applicable, then that could be in scope. And if you'd like additional clarification, please send us an email.
Sounds good. For carbon negative shot, is biochar enhanced weathering research encouraged?
So I guess I'd echo Hal's answer that, where you have a basic science challenge involving or understanding those processes a little better, I think that's within scope. I know there's a lot of examples of biochar being used as a remedy already, but if there's some basic science questions, both in biochar and in mineral weathering, the FOA.
Great, thanks. Talia, it's back to you about the examples are the examples 1 to 6 given in the call? Are they some of the examples that you're looking for?
Yes, so we have 6 examples in the call of cross-cutting fundamental research that is of relevance to multiple Earthshots. That's what those are. They are examples only. They are not meant to be a list of topics that we're requesting proposals, but just to give you examples of what kinds of things might have relevance to multiple Earthshots.
To confirm, there is no need to have both experimental and computational, or is it required to have both approaches?
Required to have both.
Shaking of the heads, no, not required. Pumping anything into the ground results in earthquake activity. Is this a topic of interest if it applies to several of the reservoir systems?
So again, you need to be addressing a fundamental research question or topic. So if in your pre-application or the project that you are thinking about for your pre-application, you need to be looking at this not from earthquake stimulation due to pumping, but what are the fundamental science questions behind that process that would help inform EGS?
Great. And Natalia, this is a follow-up about the examples given. They said, I didn't mean specific examples given. What I meant was that there are 8 topics in the FOA. Do we need to apply to only a single topic, or can the proposal apply to more than one topic?
Okay, so I think perhaps in this case, they're referencing the Earthshots. There are 6 Earthshots in the funding opportunity announcement. And yes, we do, as I've stated, encourage and will prioritize applications that address more than one Earthshot.
Great, thank you. And with that we didn't get to a couple of questions. We will ask that everybody who still has a question left to get answered, email the Energy Earthshots mailbox.
sc.earthshots@science.doe.gov. We'll put it in the chat.
Yep. Thank you to our panelists.
So Natalie, there was a question. Will the Q&A thread be available at the webinar, after the webinar?
Yeah, they will not be available. This recording will be available. So I think I've dropped into the chat already. You can find today's slides on the Office of Science website, as well as the recording, which we're hoping to put up by the end of the week, maybe early next week. But I'm going to get that email address for you.
I got it, Natalie.
Okay. Perfect. And then this is where the FOA is, the PDF. So thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day.